Hello and welcome to the rules of the show. These are the rules of the show. Each episode, the guests will introduce one new rule for the show. The text of the rule may be negotiated between the host and the guests, and when a consensus has been reached, it will be adopted into the rules of the show, effective the next episode.
At the end of the show, the host and the guest describe what they have learned and how it applies to their lives today.
At some point, each participant must speak in French or in a French accent.
Each participant must break an existing rule.
Around the half-hour mark of the episode, begin a game of Good Question, the rules of which can be found in Appendix A. For the duration of the game, the rules of the game apply and the rules of the show do not.
Each episode, whenever a direct reference is made to each rule of the show for the first time, the name of the original drafter of that rule must be said aloud.
The guest picks a secret word. They must try to get the host to say the word during the show. The guest must reveal if they were successful.
Each episode, the participants respond to a comment or question about the show.
The host must ask the guest what alarm clock tone they use. Guest is invited to imitate said sound. The host can then only reply with, "Interesting," and is not allowed to reveal what their alarm is until a guest reveals that they have the same one, at which point this rule will be removed.
Once per show, the guest may invoke this rule. When this rule is invoked, the guest must perform an appropriate ceremony to remove a rule from the show.
While discussing their relationship to rules, the guest must include a live Foley sound effect. The host may assist if requested.
Shows ending in 3 must contain Missy information.
Each episode, participants must take a break and perform a costume change.
Each episode, if a phrase spoken is recognized as a lyric, the other participants must sing or repeat the phrase. The first instance is mandatory. Subsequent acknowledgements are optional.
The community's official wave is performed by holding up your hand, palm facing out, with your index and middle fingers intertwined and the other fingers and thumb extended.
Thou shalt not take the name of the Lord thy God, by thine own definition, in vain. If thou dost, thou must perform an appropriate penance or make a charitable donation to receive an indulgence.
If someone apologizes, another participant must whisper no apology necessary. If the initial participant believes it was, they may insist.
If there is a question that none of the participants can answer, one of them must phone a friend.
And I'm very excited to be joined by my guest today. You know him from podcasts like Dead Eyes, Tiny Dinos, guest on Comedy Bang Bang and The Chris Gethard Show, the long-running George Lucas Talk Show, and current project Connor Ratliff Presents The Acting Class, which is available both in live show form and on YouTube. Please welcome Connor Ratliff.
Hello. Thank you for having me on the show.
I'm very happy to have you here. You were instrumental in this show finally getting made. I've been plotting it for years, but then I saw last year that you were teaching a podcast class online.
And specifically how to turn your weird ideas, weird or unmanageable ideas into podcasts, because I felt like I don't know how to teach people how to have a hit podcast or how to have or even a good podcast, but I do feel like I have a talent for figuring out, like, when people have an idea and they're just not quite sure, is this a podcast? Could it be?
Yeah.
Because I can usually, have a pretty good brain. A lot of people said that when I was trying to make Dead Eyes into a podcast, they're like, that could only really last 1 or 2 episodes.
Mm-hmm.
And I could see the path that, oh no, this could go on for a very long time. And you had one of my favorite ideas in the class, because it was immediately apparent to me. Yes, this. There were some people who took the class who had ideas that were complicated and tricky, and we worked a lot to try to figure them out. And some people took the class and they're like, I want to do an improvised D&D podcast. I was like, okay, so do it. And you had one that was like, you were most of the way there, but I feel like it was helpful to be able to figure out, like, in some ways it was really just a matter of telling you, like, yes, this is an idea. This could work. And if I recall correctly, a lot of it had to do with, like, it's going to get complicated anyway. So it really is about simplifying it, because just the nature of what it is, you don't need to overcomplicate it, because the overcomplication will happen. That will just be part of the growth of it,
Yeah, and here we are 20 episodes in, and it is indeed complicated. So I'm very grateful that you were able to help polish it up and give it the push to get online.
And figuring out the important thing about making it fun, and for people who enjoy rules and enjoy figuring stuff out, it's fun to hear people sort of pick at a thing and take it apart and put it back together and figure out, are we doing this right, etc.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, speaking of kind of challenging podcast premises, one of your previous projects, 12-Hour Day, is a big inspiration, because it is one of the most technically and even listening wise challenging podcasts that I know of.
Yeah, and most of that has to do with the creator of the podcast, my friend JD Amato. It was his idea for a podcast. He is the brains and I'm the muscle of that operation, in the sense that I think the reason he thought of me to do it is because he knew that I would be the person who would be good at executing something that long.
Yeah.
And he's the one who'll figure out, well, here's how we do it. And I'm the one who, it's sort of like JD's the one who figures out, I need this boulder to be on the top of that hill. And I'm the one who's like, all right, well, I'll carry it,
Yeah.
We notoriously have had episodes where JD once lied to me and told me he had a business meeting and he went and took a nap while I covered for him. I think he did have a business meeting, but I think it was over very quickly. And then he used that opportunity to rest while I soldiered on solo on the microphone.
For people who haven't listened to, all the episodes are at least 12 hours long. I think several of them are quite a bit longer than that.
We usually would run long because oftentimes when we'd be wandering around New York City, and at the point where we reached 12 hours, we were sometimes 45 minutes away from home. So we'd ride the train back. And so we overshoot it by an hour. There's a weird thing that happens with long shows, which is the first 6 hours of a 12-hour show feels very long, and the second half of it is all downhill. With each passing minute, you have less time than you have already committed to it, and it starts to you get to hour 11 and you suddenly get a weird second wind,
Yeah. Well, and you're also famous, at least for me, on the George Lucas Talk Show, many episodes which would be video lasting, 6, 8, 12 plus hours.
And that was pandemic related, because when time lost all meaning in lockdown, suddenly and we were doing shows that were for charity or for causes or things, it became essential that we go long just as a way of raising more funds, Well, and we had nowhere else to be.
Yeah. Well, and your audience as well, as I was part of that. I'm very grateful. For a long time, that was a weekly appointment viewing. And, one of the highlights of the week, when time, as you say, didn't really mean anything. It was all right, well, I know once a week I will have a whole evening, maybe late into the night, that will be fully entertaining and often raising money, being able to donate to some really important causes at the same time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We stopped doing those long. I mean, we did one earlier this year for the LA fires to try to help people. Whenever people say, "Hey, when are you going to bring back the live stream version of George Lucas?" And when are you going to go back to doing those really long live streams? The answer has always been if we bring back the show, it will mean that things have gone badly.
Yeah, absolutely. It's not a thing to do in normal times.
It was true this year because Griffin's the one who hates doing the live streams. And it was Griffin's idea this year. Is I could do a live stream because the fires in LA are bad and we could help a little bit. And so we were all right, we'll do it.
Yeah, well, it's a hard thing. You can tell.
Which is my soft way of announcing that I have a feeling we're not done doing live streams.
Yeah, unfortunately, the world is not through its hardship. But let's pivot. So our traditional first rule of of our first segment is to ask you about your relationship to rules. Are you a rule follower, breaker, something more complicated?
I mean, generally speaking, in a societal sense, I like to follow rules. Most rules are pretty good. They're things that keep us safe. I was thinking about one of my favorite scenes in all of David Lynch's films is the scene in Lost Highway where someone is tailgating Robert Loggia, who's this criminal boss, and driving too closely behind them. And he basically beats the man to within an inch of his life while screaming at him about the 1 car length per 10 miles per hour rule, which is a rule that really, when I learned how to drive, really got to me. And I remember there's an old Disney film starring Goofy that explains about the purpose of that rule being that it's about how long it will take your reflexes and your car to slow down. If you're going 60 miles an hour and you don't have 6 car lengths between you and the next car, you probably do not have time to not crash into them if something happens.
Your reflexes, your brakes are not enough.
And it's always one of those things that drives me crazy, especially in fast moving traffic, when you are leaving a gap and people fill that gap like, oh, there's room for me to pull in. And I'm like, no, that's my safety room. So that I always really enjoy how one of the most violent scenes in all of David Lynch is a character who's just
which is saying something.
Really emphatic about that rule. It's a very, very funny scene. But I was thinking about specifically rules in comedy because there are these rules that you'll hear rules that get mentioned in comedy, like the rule of threes is something that gets thrown out a lot in terms of like things are funnier because you have something is done once and then it's repeated. And then once you know something can be repeated, that third time I think is extra funny because you've established the pattern and now people, there's a pattern and now you get the delight of paying it off. But also so much of comedy is about surprise. So there are, for every rule of threes, there are just as many things that are funny because you have a 1-2 or you have something happen 5 times or like, it's not really a rule. It's sort of a notion or a guideline or it's an idea of a rule.
The guideline of threes doesn't hit the same way. It doesn't have the same ring to it.
Yeah, but I think I am a bigger, in general, especially with creativity involved, guidelines feel better to me than rules because part of being creative is not following rules, part of it is like figuring out a new thing. And the thing that I'm emailing you a thing now, a few years ago, speaking of breaking rules, I would, in the pre-Elon days of Twitter, I used to do these long mega threads and I would do them about animated films. And I did one where and the breaking rules of this is I realized at one point I had done a Mickey Mouse thread where I went through all of Mickey Mouse's cartoons and I realized I had essentially uploaded every single Mickey Mouse cartoon in fragments to Twitter, which I'm like, oh my God, this is an enormous copyright violation. Hopefully I'm protected somewhat by the fact that I was contextualizing these things. It was sort of an academic exercise.
It was criticism.
It was criticism. But one of the threads that I did was all of the Roadrunner films, the Coyote and Roadrunner films directed by Chuck Jones for Warner Brothers, the Looney Tunes films. And I did a mega thread, which was all of those films in chronological order because I realized I've grown up watching those films. I think those are among my favorite films that have ever been made. But when most people experience them, they're usually in some version of shuffle mode on TV or they'll pop up in a weird order. And watching them chronologically, which I don't have any reason to believe I could ever achieve this, but like if I could ever spearhead or somehow make a Criterion or some sort of a physical, like a Blu-ray 4K release of something, if I could ever, if someone just granted me the wish, you can put out a cinematic 4K box set that you're the producer of this thing, it would be all of the Roadrunner films in chronological order, with the, including the Coyote, Bugs Bunny films and the Ralph Wolf and Sam Sheepdog cartoons,
right?
Which are sort of a spin-off, in chronological order. Even if it was just the classic era, like that first decade of those films.
Yeah.
Because when you watch them in order, you realize they kind of have a reputation for being repetitive. And most of those films were written by a man named Michael Maltese, great Looney Tunes writer.
Okay.
Wrote many of the greatest cartoons of all time. And when he was writing them, that first decade where they would do like one, maybe two per year, they were not repetitive. They actually went out of their way to rarely repeat a gag that they'd already done in a film. They really seem to, and I'm just basing this on my watching of them, not on anything they ever said.
Sure.
Really worked hard to be new with each new thing, to present a new element. And it was only when Michael Maltese left Warner Brothers and Chuck Jones kept making them, where he'd write them or he'd have another writer, that he started repeating gags. And that was just that was not even for that many years. It was like 2 or 3 years of repeating certain things. And then those just got mixed into the shuffle mode. Now, I mentioned this in terms of rules because I just emailed you a thing.
I've got it pulled up now.
Because I did this big chronological project where I watched them in order and commented on all of them and analyzed them. Every now and then people will email me. This will get picked up as a story every few years. It'll get regurgitated that Chuck Jones has these rules for the Roadrunner cartoons. And the thing that is interesting about them to me is that Michael Maltese was asked about these at one point, and he's like, I never saw this list. It's completely a retroactive.
Yeah, right. It's descriptive rather than prescriptive.
It's also not true in terms of so many of these are violated time and again. These are guidelines. They're presented as rules. Okay. We always did this. But when you go through them, you're like, well, what about this time? What about that time? There are so many exceptions to these rules that they're interesting from a certain point of view in that these are the trends. These are the things they generally did. But they are not this ironclad system that Chuck Jones presented these as if they were so disciplined that these were their rules.
Right.
And they're more just generalized observations that are a little bit, he's trying to codify something that he did retroactively. And it doesn't, a lot of these don't line up because rule number 4, I mean, we can go through these rules if you like.
Sure.
Rule number 1, the Roadrunner cannot harm the Coyote except by going beep, beep.
Okay.
There are many examples where the Roadrunner will do something that will intentionally or not harm the Coyote. But most of the time he just does go beep, beep and surprises him. But there are plenty of times where the Roadrunner will do something. Now, the Roadrunner doesn't, it's true that he doesn't seem to be going out of his way to harm the Coyote, but that's not a rule that's applied with 100%. Rule number 2, no outside force can harm the Coyote, only his own ineptitude or the failure of the Acme products. This one, absolute bullshit. This is, there are a couple different ways that the Coyote gets hurt. And a lot of times it's it's his ineptitude or it's the failure of the Acme products. But there are also times when the Coyote is harmed because suddenly the rules of physics cease to exist or are literally
the run
reversed.
Off the cliff of situation or
I don't know how else to describe. There are times when the Roadrunner will be standing on a bridge and he will cut a hole in the bridge around the Roadrunner, and then the Roadrunner won't fall. The Roadrunner will remain suspended in midair. The entire bridge and the mountains that support it on either side will fall.
It's funny just describing it.
Now, I don't know how you describe that except that an outside force is at work. It almost the rule should be that nothing, even when the Coyote is in the right, the rules of the universe will change to make it so that he cannot win.
Right. There's a cruel, omniscient force working against him.
Essentially, the Coyote cannot die, but he also cannot win. It's like the worst purgatory. There was a point where I sort of was like, oh, if you had to develop like a unified field theory of these films, you would almost imagine that given the desert setting and the occasional cameo of the U.S. military in terms of who owns this property, it almost feels like the Coyote is in a simulation that the military is running.
Okay.
Where it's almost like what's that, Mickey 19, Mickey 17? What was that movie that came out?
Yeah, Mickey 17, I think. Yeah.
It's almost like the Coyote is being like 3D printed again and again to
part
die
of like
and
some
die and
Area 51 Manhattan Project like secret plan here.
Because there's plenty of cartoons where he'll sort of bump up against like restricted government test areas, and it is the 1950s, 40s, 50s, early 60s. It just makes sense that it's like this poor Coyote is dying every few minutes if you would follow the rules.
Yeah.
Always starts over. So rule number 3, the Coyote could stop anytime if he were not a fanatic. Repeat, a fanatic is one who redoubles his effort when he has forgotten his aim. George Santayana. This one seems like it's a rule, but it's also just seems like it's more just a statement of the reality. It's
kind of describing his philosophy more than the universe.
Rule number 4, no dialogue ever except beep beep. This completely erases the various cartoons in which Wile E. Coyote speaks. We all know the second cartoon. Now, this is not a Roadrunner cartoon. The second cartoon that Wile E. Coyote appeared in was Operation Rabbit, which was the Bugs Bunny and Coyote cartoons where he speaks. Later, there are some cartoons you might see where that same boy, where he does I'm Wile E. Coyote, super genius, where he has that kind of very erudite voice by Mel Blanc. There was a point, and I'll always be angry about this, there's a couple of cartoons that pop up that where they're Roadrunner cartoons, but they are also being watched by 2 kids who are watching a Roadrunner cartoon on TV.
Ooh,
And at one point, the Coyote turns the camera and starts talking, which is unusual for a Roadrunner cartoon. I later found out, I didn't know what these were. I just thought those were weird cartoons when I was a kid because there were a couple of them. As an adult, I learned that Chuck Jones made a TV pilot called The Adventures of the Roadrunner that did not get picked up. But in that show, it was a very meta kind of Roadrunner cartoon where the Coyote would talk to the camera about these things. There'd be a lot of stuff that felt like a regular Roadrunner cartoon, but they would also pull out every now and then an almost Mystery Science Theater where it's like you see the kids who watch the show
and
talk about the show.
Human kids, or are the kids also animated?
No, they're animated, but they're human kids, but they're animated.
Right.
You'll see them, they're like 2 little kids dressed like cowboys, and they talk about, if I was the Roadrunner, I'd do this, or if I was that Coyote.
Yeah.
Really cool idea for what could have been a great animated series, but the executives at the time, it got released as like a featurette, like a 25-minute long thing.
Right.
It's really great. It would have been such a fantastic TV series. And I'll never forgive the executives at ABC of that time who prevented what would have been a second golden age of Chuck Jones Roadrunner cartoons if he'd been allowed to make it as a show. Rule number 5, the Roadrunner must stay on the road. Otherwise, logically, he would not be called Roadrunner. There's lots of times when the Roadrunner runs off-road.
Sure.
I don't know what to say, except this rule is obeyed mostly, but not always. Rule number 6, all action must be confined to the natural environment of the 2 characters, the Southwest American desert. Mostly true. There is a Christmas special cartoon where they sort of go off-road into the mountains and they're in like a snowy area. And I guess that's just a holiday special, so they broke the rules for the holidays.
Right.
Rule number 7, all materials, tools, weapons, or mechanical conveniences must be obtained from the Acme Corporation. This is mostly true, but there are weirdly examples every now and then where he orders stuff and it's from Ajax or some other company. And I'm like, all right, you didn't always do this, so I don't know why you made it a rule. Rule number 8, whenever possible, make gravity the Coyote's greatest enemy. The wherever possible is doing a lot of work in that rule.
Yeah, that's a lot of flexibility.
That's a guideline. That's a guideline. And then rule number 9, the coyote is always more humiliated than harmed by his failures. Now, I guess you can't really know what the measure of humiliation, like what the ratio is. You're just taking his word for it there. But there are some times where it does appear he is physically harmed to a point where the physical pain might be worse than the blow to his pride.
He's only not harmed because of the cartoon logic. Like, he is flattened.
Oh, and
he
you
is
said
squished,
my secret word was cartoon, and you said it.
Hey, okay. All right. Check that box.
All right. But I thought that was an interesting thing that people send me every now and then. And it's also a thing that is, as a list, people are always like, look at this cool list of rules that they had. And when you actually go through, I'm like, the list is not quite as cool as it should be, because it really isn't. It just brings to mind all the exceptions, you know?
My ideal version of something like this would like really clarify and shine a light onto some internal structures and reasoning and like creative choices being made, rather than just kind of vaguely describing what sometimes happens.
Yeah, like I'd be much more interested, rather than Chuck Jones acting like they always knew what they were doing. I'd be much more interested in hearing him go through the evolution of, here's how we figured certain things out, and here's why this is different than that. Like, if you watch the Ralph Wolf and Sam Sheepdog cartoons, which are the ones where they clock in for work and then they they're pleasant to each other as colleagues, but then when they start working, they're very violent towards one another. And which is an interesting twist on the Roadrunner sort of ethos, because it really adds an element of like satirizing the sort of like people's jobs versus who they really are. And when you watch those cartoons, they only did I think 7 maybe of those shorts over the course of a decade. But what's really interesting is they sort of figure that out as they go along. With each new cartoon, they figure out new aspects of it. And by the end of it, they literally have it to the point where it looks like Ralph and Sam actually live as domestic partners. They live in a little house together.
I feel like I've seen that one. Yeah.
And I sort of choose to believe that, in a quite subversive for the time way, that everything about it to me is coded not that they're roommates.
Right.
They live in a beautiful little house that's kind of like a Norman Rockwell delicate, kind of like a dollhouse sort of. And they're having breakfast together, and then they go to work. And I'm like, this is sort of like, I don't know, like Mr. and Mrs. Smith or something, where it's like they are professionally adversarial, but domestically they are in a committed, loving relationship, which really, to me, adds such an extra
very
layer.
Complex. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's almost like an S&M thing.
The last time that I saw that final cartoon they did, because that was the last one they did, I'm like, okay, this isn't like they're in one of the earlier ones. They're, I think, neighbors. They drive past each other, and then by the end, they were just like, no, they are lovers. Like they're one of them is gonna like die in the other's arms. You know, it's just pretty amazing to me.
Right. It really adds a level of like, oh, if the wolf is successful, then this is gonna be even more tragic and heartbreaking.
Yeah, really complicated stuff. And the rules of that series to me are more fascinating than the rules of the Roadrunner series, which are not rules at all. They're just some guiding notions or principles, you know?
Yeah. Fantastic.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that's an excellent summation of our rule subject. Let's move on to the next segment, I guess. What's your alarm clock tone?
I'm your only friend. I'm not your only friend, but I'm a little glowing friend. But really, I'm not actually your friend, but I am. Blue canary in the alley by the light switch, who watches over you. Make a little birdhouse in your soul, not to put too fine a point on it. Say I'm the only bee in your bonnet. Make a little birdhouse in your soul. So it is the They Might Be Giants song, Birdhouse in Your Soul, from the album Flood. That is my alarm that goes off and has been for quite some time. It used to be Out of Touch by Hall & Oates, but I changed a while ago, and I may change back at some point because they're both good Good wake-up songs.
Interesting. All right. Well, we're approaching our 30-minute mark, but we could push that off a second.
I am going to declare that the rule about how in every episode someone must speak in a French accent is no longer a rule. I hereby declare it is gone from the rules. 1, 2, 3.
All right. Well, I think you're invoking the Mathieu Blanchette ceremony there, and that feels like a pretty appropriate ceremony to remove the Elizabeth Chaudeville rule.
It was a good rule, but I also felt like when I thought of what would be a fun way to remove a rule, I thought it would be fun to remove a rule by also following the rule in the removal process.
I think that's a very smart way to do it. All right. Well, it's been a good run. Elizabeth, you're welcome back on the show. You can bring a new rule, but from here on out.
And it's a sign of respect. It's not anything against the rule. It's a sign of respect to remove it with pomp and ceremony.
Absolutely. With a very appropriate ceremony, I would argue. All right. Well, let's say that puts us about the 30-minute mark, and it's time for the Brian De Silva rule and a game of good question. Are you ready?
Are you ready?
Where did you grow up?
Where do you think I grew up?
Was it in the United States?
Have you ever heard of Jefferson City, Missouri?
Which state is that in?
Ever hear of a place called the Show Me State?
Is that north or south of Indiana?
Where do you think Indiana is?
Is Indiana in the United States?
Is it something that you studied in school?
You think I went to school?
You didn't go to school?
All right. You got me.
It is in the Midwest. Almost right in the middle.
I had a sense of that, but I was struggling. All right. Well, I'll declare you the winner then of this round of the Brian De Silva game of good question. So you have the honor of changing one of these 3 rules. Which one would you like to change, and what would you like to change it to?
I'm going to do a reversion because I realized one of the rules had to do with it can't be a cardinal or a pope.
Yeah.
I'm going to change it to that one of the people has to be the pope.
Okay. So is as simple as changing
the second person, the person who goes first is the interviewer, and the person who responds is always the new pope. And it doesn't have to be the new pope from Chicago. It can be whatever your version of a new pope is.
All right. So let's so the second player to speak
is a person who just was appointed pope. Doesn't have to be a person who thought they were going to be the pope. Like, it doesn't have to exist within the reality of someone who could be a pope. You could choose to play it as if Gilbert Gottfried was just picked to be the pope and he's surprised by it. So you can still work in, if you want to do a celebrity impression, you could have it be, oh, I think that Jimmy Fallon was just made the pope. You'd be like, oh my God, it's amazing. I can't believe it. And so you can still fold in a celebrity impression, but they were, I can't believe I was the host of Late Night, and then I was on Saturday Night Live, and I was on Tonight Show, now I'm the Pope. And you could do it that way.
Fantastic. All right. Well, that's going to be extremely straightforward to implement.
Yeah.
Love that. All right. Let's check out the old spreadsheet here. Do you need a break now? Should we take it later?
Yeah, let's take a little break, do our little costume change.
All right, and we're back from our break.
All right.
So as well as the rule to talk about, the Roadrunner rule, which we've covered, you've brought a new rule to add to the show. Is that correct?
Yeah, and this is a rule for host and guest and listeners.
Ooh, okay, I like that.
And I was trying to think, because I was trying to think of something, and there were things I was sort of brainstorming, and some of them felt complicated. Some of them felt like, oh, it's just going to make the show more difficult. And I've been thinking, what's something that could be a thing I haven't heard anybody do on another podcast that is ultimately a healthy thing for all involved. There's really no downside to it as far as I can tell.
Okay.
And that is that during the course of the recording of or listening to of the episode, everyone needs to drink a full glass of water. Because
I love
people don't drink enough water, right? They're not. A lot of times people get dehydrated, and obviously we could be sticklers about what a full glass is. But I think we all know, we all have a sense of it. It could be sometimes people have small glasses, but you want to. I think that's fine as long as it is full, not like more than a shot glass. Doesn't have to be like a pint of water, just a reasonable glass of water, small or medium. And for the guest and host, we should do it. It shouldn't just be like, throughout the course of the episode. It should be a moment where it happens, and we allow the listener to share in that moment where we're all going to drink the glass of water together.
All right, I'm gonna fill up my glass because I just finished a glass here.
Great. And it's also good. This is also count as a Foley sound effect, right?
Absolutely. All right.
All right. And I have my glass already pre-filled. So I'm ready.
Cheers.
Cheers.
That's delicious. I love the principle of this rule. It reminds me of something that you may or may not remember, but other people probably won't even have awareness of. You did a George Lucas talk show episode in the depths of timelessness, which was Oops All Bumpers. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
And you got the audience to send in little video bumper clips to add to the show. And I did one that was eat some vegetables. So I feel like this is very much in that realm of gently bullying the hosts to do something that's good for themselves.
And it's also not something that, I mean, I can imagine there's some people who don't really like drinking a glass of water, but I think at most it might be a minor annoyance as opposed to like, oh, I hate water, or, like, I think it's most people will be, oh, fine, glass of water. They don't necessarily want to drink a glass of water, but it's not, ultimately, most of the time you drink a glass of water, you tend to feel a little bit better.
I'm very happy for this show to be on the record pro water.
Yeah.
That's uncontroversial, I think.
Yeah. It's also one of those things that, I think, not to get too political here, but like there's the, the stuff that's happening with like Florida voting to like take fluoride out of tap water and things like that. I do feel like with a lot of stuff that's happening lately, I feel like we were born into a world where people who went before us went to the trouble of building all this really important stuff that we kind of take for granted. And one of the things is that water goes through pipes and it comes out of like multiple nozzles that we can control.
Yeah, and it's clean and
And I'm like, it is so good that it's almost impossible to imagine us, the people who live in the world right now, ever making this happen. Like, there's a part of me that feels like this had to happen before we were here, because it kind of feels like if people wanted to do that now, they'd be like, well, what's in it for me? And I'm like, no, it's like good for everybody. If there's just like water going everywhere in these pipes and it's clean water.
We have examples of that, of places in Canada and the US that don't have clean water for whatever reason. And the reason usually being racism or other prejudices. And it's like, why can't we just get them clean water, please?
It's one of those
should
things
be a priority.
Like the places where it either hasn't happened or it has fallen apart somehow through institutional neglect and just people being like horrific and selfish. But it's just one of those things that it is like, I feel like we don't fully appreciate on a day-to-day basis because it's something that we all at some point take for granted for months or years at a time. And then the thought will occur to us, pipes go everywhere in every building.
Yeah.
It has, you can drink it, you can bathe in it, you can, you know, like it is such an amazing thing that I feel like it would be, I feel like now there, you know, there are people out there who are like, let's privatize it.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Like even just like the fact that in the course of my lifetime, like when I was a kid, the joke was that bottled water was for like rich yuppies. Everyone said that like Evian it's naive backwards because it's a way of tricking people with too much money into paying for something you get for free at a drinking fountain.
Which is a statement that holds up pretty well, I still think.
But now we've sort of gotten used to the fact that like, oh yeah, bottles of water, buying bottles of water. And you're like, I remember when there were drinking fountains everywhere. And the idea was wherever you went, like one of the high points every day of grade school was when we'd all line up at the drinking fountain and everybody get a drink of water. And it was just like water never tasted better. It was never colder. It was never, I've never had water that felt or tasted as good as it did when I was a kid at the drinking fountain. It was your turn and you were just like, you always got just enough, but if you were always like very aware that you're like, I've gone through my turn, I can't have any more water. But like, if you'd been allowed to, you would have like just stayed there and drank for 5 minutes, you know?
I love tap water, and I think we should
so much of that in terms of like a drinking fountain now is rare. You know, it feels like when you find it, you're like, oh, it's like a payphone or something, you know?
I think we should bring back normalize teasing people for drinking bottled water where there is a tap water option, because that should be embarrassing.
I love when you see a drinking fountain that also has the thing to fill up your refillable water bottle. I think that's one of the great modern twists on it. But it also feels like every time I see that, I don't have a bottle with me. And I'm like, I wish I had a bottle with me. I need to get more in the habit. I have a couple of good bottles I should just always have in my bag for whenever I see one of those.
Yep. I was not a bottle a carrier until a few years ago, and now I have it whenever I have a bag on me, and it makes the world a difference.
Yeah, if you got a bag, put a bottle in it.
Absolutely.
It also there's a great joke on the show Parks and Rec about how the people of Pawnee don't know how to drink from drinking fountains, and they put their whole mouth over the nozzle.
It's a really good physical comedy
and
bit.
I will admit, as a New Yorker, I have occasionally seen a drinking fountain where I think, oh, no way, I am not going anywhere near that because it's been, but I feel like in a better world, there'd be drinking fountains everywhere, and they would always be clean and hygienic, and I miss them. I miss the prevalence of, you'd be in a state office building and you'd see that drinking fountain and you'd be like, I gotta get a drink of water, as opposed to
it's gonna be cold. It's gonna be
opposed to a vending machine where you buy yet another plastic bottle that you're gonna recycle or throw away.
All right. Well, I think this is a fantastic rule. I have no major notes. Let's just figure out the wording to get this on the record here. So do you want to be an every episode?
Yes, every episode.
Okay.
Until this gets stricken by someone who throws it out as a rule.
The anti-water lobby.
Yeah, some dry boy is going to come on the show and be like, not on my watch.
We could say the host and the guests and the listeners.
And the listeners. Everybody everybody takes a drink. Everybody drinks a glass of water. And that's by everybody, we mean host, guest, and listeners. The guest and the host will obviously do it while recording. The listener will do it whenever they are listening to the episode. We would encourage people, if you're listening to an episode and you don't have access to water in that given moment, you pause the episode, preferably.
Yes.
Until you can have a drink of water and share in the moment. Obviously, in emergency situations where this is not possible, just really try to pretend you're drinking a glass of water. But that's not a rule. That's just a guideline in the spirit of the rule.
So how specific, how wordy do you want to get? Because I think you could just say every episode, everybody drinks a glass of water.
Yeah.
And
when it's time. Yeah.
Okay. Do we want to say, at the cue or something, or just...
I think it can happen at any point in the episode. It just has to happen before the episode is over, unless that's the rule that gets violated that episode.
Okay. All right. So we've got the chat in the side here. So here's just every episode, everybody drinks a glass of water. Do we want to elaborate on that?
I don't think so, because I think it's pretty clear. I think it's as clear as the water you'll be drinking.
All right. Well, this is, I think, a very efficient rule, and that is going to be good for everybody.
And as the keeper of the rule that we want to hear it. You take the time. It's not like you're just gradually drinking it. But I think we know that. I don't think we need to make the rule any more than that. It's just...
I like that the rule is just is clean and simple, but in practice, we know that there's a little bit more ceremony to it. Yeah. All right. Well, I love that. Maybe I'll get you to record a clean take of that.
Every episode, everybody drinks a glass of water.
Fantastic. All right. So I'm looking through my spreadsheet here. I've said the secret word, listener email, or listener message. I've got one here for our previous episode about the hand gesture. I put out on social media asking if there is any ulterior meanings to this gesture that anyone knows of, pro or con, just so we don't go flashing symbols without knowing what. The only one, I've got a few people saying, the cross fingers for good luck. So I'm open to that being, included. I don't think that's controversial. My cousin, past guest, the Reverend Martha Riddle, points out that it's similar to the way that, let me get the wording right here, that old believers of the Russian Orthodox Church do a crossed finger with the other fingers brought together as a way of doing the sign of the cross. But she acknowledges that it's not so similar, that anyone will have confusion that we are old believers in the Russian Orthodox Church trying to...
that seems safe.
It seems safe. So that's me responding to the listener question. Again, if anyone's listening and has an idea of what this gesture means, that we should not be using it, please let us know. All right. And we're coming through. We're absolutely barreling through our segments here. I think we've got to describe what we've learned and how it applies to our lives today. Would you like to go first, or would you like me to?
You can go first. I'll go second.
Sure. I guess I've learned about, I could claim I learned where Missouri is, but I already had a general idea of where Missouri is. And I don't think our kind of stilted conversation actually helped that. So I'll say the Roadrunner rules that you brought in. I hadn't seen those before, and I find that really interesting. And I think, like you, I find it interesting that they exist, and a little bit disappointing that they're not as good as they could be, or as specific as they could be.
Yeah, by far the most interesting thing about them to me is just what it says about Chuck Jones, that he felt like he needed to. It's such an achievement. Those films are one of the all-time great cinematic achievements. I don't know that they've ever. I feel like to some extent they have not been as acknowledged as they should be as like cinematic achievements. As great films, because I don't think there's ever been talk of like, let's put all of them out in a collection in order, which to me seems like such a mark of basic respect that you would give something. That they're just like, they just exist out there however they exist on random compilations. And I'm like, no, put these in order, properly restore and remaster all of them, put them out in order and give them the context that they deserve. I think in a way those rules were part of Chuck Jones's sort of late in life kind of trying to soak up as much respectability and get the respect that get the respect that he wasn't necessarily afforded when they were making the cartoons, because they were looked at as low, and then they were as an old man he finally got filmmakers like Steven Spielberg and George Lucas who would properly credit what a great filmmaker he was. And I feel like those rules are sort of a bad stab at legitimacy or something, or trying to establish what an auteur he was, like how we really were thoughtful about this. And I'm like, you don't need to make up a fancy thing. What you did is already remarkable. That those films started out as the first one was supposed to be a satire of like cat and mouse, dog and cat kinda, chase movies. And it's a great example of like failed satire that actually, because what they accidentally did was make the best version of the thing they were trying to make fun of.
Yeah.
And the satire, and also succeeded as like satire of like consumer culture and of the idea that like,
you can buy things to solve your problems.
Yeah. That corporations will sell you the thing that will save you. And it's like, and those things backfiring. It's such a great, like mid 20th century, like, look at how we're fucked kind of that Acme will literally send you a thing that you can use to like blow up a bridge or something, you know.
I wonder if there's the what is it, Roadrunner versus Acme movie that has been
Coyote versus Acme,
Coyote versus Acme, that has had its struggles, but I think is finally getting released.
Yes,
if they're going
Catch
to
Up Entertainment, who salvaged the Porky and Daffy movie, have come in to salvage, and the and that movie, which stars Will Forte. I read an early, like a pre-filming draft of that. The person who wrote it, Sammy Birch, she used to be a casting director. I auditioned for her. I remember for like an MTV like comedy series or something years ago. She wrote the screenplay for that. She's an Oscar-nominated screenwriter for the movie May December, the Todd Haynes movie that came out. Like, movie. And it was crazy to me. It's like you have an Academy Award-nominated screenwriter who has written this movie that you are going to bury for a tax write-off. It's so amazing that it's going to get released. I am crossing my fingers, almost in the manner of the official community wave of the show.
Yeah.
There was a point when they were right about to shoot where I was sent the script and I attended like a Zoom reading, and I was asked for feedback. I'm like, I don't really have any feedback. I had one note that was about not even a main joke. It was sort of like almost like a background joke. And I won't say what it is because I'm waiting to see when the movie comes out.
If I made it,
I had a note that was like, actually, I said, this joke's good, but it would actually make more sense if it was this instead of that.
Yeah.
And I'm desperately hoping that, because it'll be probably my only contribution to the Looney Tunes universe in any official capacity. Although hopefully, who knows what can happen. But I'm really hoping that my note got taken. I'll take such a sense of satisfaction if I made the tiniest contribution to that final product of that movie. But I think you were starting to say, I think that movie might lead to a renaissance, a new appreciation for the Roadrunner, the original.
Yeah, absolutely.
And also, sure hope so.
How it relates to this rules document. Like, I feel like sometimes we see the like Lego sequel or reboot that's like takes its source material like so seriously, but maybe in not always in the right ways. If this is something where, I mean, I won't get you to speculate because you've read the script, but like, I hope the screenwriter didn't take these rules too seriously because they don't actually reflect the spirit of the original very well.
I think my memory of it's been a few years since I read it, but my memory of it is that almost in a Roger Rabbit sort of way, the movie is sort of creating its own universe. In some ways, kind of not. In some ways, sort of similar to, I don't know if you ever saw, there was that Looney Tunes Back in Action movie. Steve Martin was like the head of Acme, and it's I think it's a little bit in the spirit of some of those things where it's sort of it's creating its own base reality in which the Looney Tunes world exists.
Right. Well, I hope it's good, because that's a really fun premise.
And if anybody out there is ever in a position they're looking for someone to spearhead a physical media release of all of the Chuck Jones Coyote verse cartoons, put me on the list to be a contributor or a contributing consultant or something.
Absolutely.
Yeah. As far as the thing that I learned
of course,
this episode, I was anxious because I was thinking I'm not going to be able to keep track of all these rules. And then I was like, I have my iPad on. I'm like, I got to make sure I can access these. And then I realized like a few minutes before I was like, oh, Andrew's going to guide me through this because he's going to be a good host and he's going to protect the guests from having to do the work of that. And
thank you.
So that's what I learned of it is that when you are a guest, trust that the host will protect you and take care of you.
Oh, good. I'm glad you feel protected. I've been doing my best there, and I think we've done a pretty good job of following everything. There's a few things that haven't come up naturally, but I think we've done a great job. So now I think it's just time to wrap things up, and any promotion, I'll say you can always email andrew@therulesoftheshow.com. We still are looking for more listener messages for the Jake Rules rule, and follow us on social media at the usual places. Connor, please tell us about your upcoming projects.
Well, if you're in New York City, you can always catch me in various shows. I do Rat Scraps every Sunday night at Caveat on the Lower East Side, which is an improv show with a guest monologist, a great batch of fully trained improvisers. Sometimes I show up in ASCAT at UCB every month, and at various other places as well. I do a show called Connor Ratliff Presents the Acting Class. It is a fully improvised one-person show that pretends to be a real acting class. And you can find older shows you can find on the Connor Ratliff Presents the Acting Class YouTube channel. So I would encourage people to subscribe to that.
It works very well in that form. I watched the live stream version too, and you don't need to see it live to enjoy it.
Thank you. And also, if you go to my social media, if you go to, I have a mailing list that you can subscribe to that will keep you up to date mostly on things that I'm doing. So just go to my, Instagram, Connor Ratliff, and you can go to the links and you find everything you need to find out.
Fantastic. All right. Well,
all right. Thank you so much, Andrew.
Thank you, Connor. This has been a great episode. Thanks for coming, and thanks everybody for listening. Bye-bye.
Bye.